13 years old. I'm going to camps and they're telling me what I'm doing is wrong. I'm like, but my dad saw it on YouTube. So like, I don't know. My dad's telling me, but it's wrong.
All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Diamond Discussion. I have a very special guest here with me, Raelin Chaffin. Ray, before I introduce you to everybody, first of all, how you doing? How you living? How's everything going?
I'm doing great. I'm loving every second of this fall I've spent in Starkville. It's just been amazing.
So, speaking of Starkville, I know a lot of our listeners do not know this. They heard me last year talking about your time at LSU and Baton Rouge and all that jazz. To a lot of our listeners, Starkville is new. So before we dive into why we're here, the pitching aspect of things and whatnot, tell us why Starkville, why the move to Mississippi State.
Yeah, so I'm a Louisiana native. I played at LSU for 3 years and I had an incredible 3 years there. Made a lot of good friendships that will last a lifetime. One of
Mm.
my best friends, Sydney Burzon, is still there, 2-time All American. She's incredible. Learned a lot from her at my time there. But sometimes it's just time for a change, and I truly believe that change can be good.
Yeah.
So I put my name in the portal and I had no clue what was going to come of it. And lo and behold, I get a call from Coach Ricketts and I come. It was one of my first visits, actually, my second visit I took.
Okay.
And I had a couple of visits planned after that, but I just fell in love with Starkville. I mean, it's just such my type of town. It's everybody knows everybody. Now it's a big college, but a small town, which I love.
Right.
So it's just super homey. I feel right at home. So I love it.
Have you gotten an opportunity to kind of immerse yourself into the city much yet?
Oh yeah. So I obviously y'all aren't familiar with Starkville, but I live right in the middle of what we call the Cotton District, which is like downtown.
Okay.
So I'll go out to eat with my teammates. I love when my parents come to town. We just go and walk the town. They have really cute shops, and I'm all about that. So I have gotten very comfortable with it. There's not a whole lot to it, but with what there is, I am very comfortable with it.
Good, good. So I know you mentioned just a second ago you're Louisiana native. What part of Louisiana?
Bossier City, Louisiana.
All right. So if people are driving through Bossier City, Louisiana, and they're there for a pit stop, I mean, what's to see, what's to do, where do they have to go eat? Give me something.
Okay, so I live in Bossier, but about 30 minutes away from me is a place called Shreveport.
Mhm.
And in Shreveport, oh, I'm so sorry.
It's
In
okay.
Shreveport, there are a bunch of good Cajun restaurants, like, mom's home cooking type of restaurants. So,
Mhm.
one place I always go when I go home is called Maryland's Place. And I always get a roast beef po' boy, and I know my mom will get the shrimp remoulade salad, and it is literally the best place I've ever had in my life. Their po' boy is like so big. Like I
Cool.
get half and I can't even eat the whole half.
Yeah, that sounds like a good place to go hang
Yeah.
out post games and whatnot. So talk us through just real briefly here. High school, as a high school student there, when you were being recruited out of high school, were you getting just like tons of offers thrown at your way? What did that process look like for you real quickly?
Yeah, so not really actually. Growing up, I was the type of pitcher who I played on like some of the best teams, all my teammates were getting a lot of offers, and maybe it was because I was very dead set on a certain place. Being a Louisiana native, like I just think a lot of us just have the mindset of wanting to go to LSU. So I want to say I got about 4 to 5 offers
Okay.
going into my freshman year of high school, but I mean, I was pretty much dead set on where I wanted to go. I wanted to be playing at a competitive level, but try to stay close to home. And Baton Rouge is about 4 hours from my house. So at the time, with me being younger and already kind of knowing a lot of the girls who were committed there, it just felt like the right thing to do. And I have no regrets. I love my time there. And,
Yeah.
I met a lot of great people just from like committing in general. Like you get to just do so much and learn so much. But back to the beginning, I really didn't have a lot of offers compared to my friends. But looking back, it all works out for good. There was a reason for everything. So
Yeah, well, I know we're gonna jump into your faith later in the show, which I'm really excited to hear you explore on expound on that front. But let's jump into just the pitching aspect of things. As we talked about offset, a lot of our listeners are in the softball world, where whether it be as a coach, a parent, a player, and so I know we have a lot of pitchers or pitchers to be on the show, and so for you as a young up and coming pitcher. I'm sure there were things that you picked up along the way that you kept with you, right, into college and now, but and then maybe there were things that you threw out of the picture too. But in terms of the investment in pitching, whether it be financially, physically, the whole nine, can you share a little bit about what that looks like for the art of pitching?
yeah, so I will say I had an amazing pitching coach growing up to when I mean I had a couple, when I first started that I would, go see when I was like 10 and 11, but once I started playing competitively, and I want to say that was at age 12,
Okay.
I I left I didn't leave Louisiana, but I left playing ball in Louisiana and started playing ball in Dallas. And so that was like when I kind of got my first like punch in the face of like there's a lot of talent around here.
Sure.
And so I was seeing my pitching coach, Brittany Mack, who was an All American at LSU, and she was incredible. I will say we would go two at a time. There was me and another girl. So I would make sure I would get there, 30 minutes before and get all the way warmed up. So whenever I would go see her for 30 minutes, I would be ready to go from the jump because I wanted to get all my parents' money's worth. So
Sure.
that's a tip too. If you're going to go to a pitching lesson, warm up before the lesson actually starts. So from the time it starts, you're actually full pitching.
Makes
So that
sense.
was a tip that my dad always told me we're going to get here and warm up before. But after that, Brittany actually moved to Texas. And my dad was like, I'm not driving to Texas during the week to give you a lesson. Like, Brittany's gotten us this far. We're just going to work from home. So my dad was on YouTube 24/7. And some of the things he looked up were right. And some of the things he looked up were wrong. So I would like find myself at that time, being 13 years old. I'm going to camps and they're telling me what I'm doing is wrong. I'm like, but my dad saw it on YouTube. So like, I don't know, my dad's telling me, but it's wrong. So it was a lot of, hit and miss with what he found. But I will say I regret how I was when I was younger because as a young girl, you never want to listen to what your dad has to say to you.
Sure.
And looking back at just now in my college years, like he was my pitching coach from the time I was, I want to say 12, 13, all the way up until now.
Wow.
Obviously, I have Coach T now and I had Beth at LSU, but like when I go home, he's who I listen to.
Yep.
So I regret not listening to him when I was younger. I think it really could have paid off a lot more because a lot of the things he said, I would hear from people, a couple years down the road, and I'm like, dang, I should have listened.
Yeah, I heard that already.
Yeah,
That's right. I got you. So now as a because you're what year are you now here
I'm
at
a
college?
senior.
Senior. Okay. So 3 years at LSU. You're about to spend a year here at Mississippi State, and then are you done after that?
Yes. I would
Okay.
like if I can play pro, that would be great, but I mean, the sad thing about pro and softball is you can't live off of it. So
Nope.
it would be cool to play a summer. I think I would really enjoy that. Just, say I did it and have the experience. But I think after, 2025, I will be done with softball.
Got you. Okay. Yeah. I mean, and again, speaking on the pro side of things, I mean, my gosh, it's come so far over the last
Yes.
10 years,
Yes.
even 5 years, really, even.
Hmm.
And so many more opportunities out there. But so this year you're locked in Mississippi State. You're there in Starkville. As far as this fall is concerned, are you guys done with fall ball now at this point?
Yeah. So we are officially done November 25th, but we still have one more full week of 8 hours. We finished 20 hours I want to say 3 weeks ago. So we did our fall ball kind of early, and
Okay.
luckily I got to play in our last fall ball game. It was our World Series, so it was super cool to be a part of that and experience what it's like to be in a game with the girls, for the first time. So it was really awesome.
That's fantastic. So, what have you? So, as a college pitcher, and we're going to move on just a little bit, but as a college pitcher, how much time does it really take to hone your craft day to day or during a season?
I would say I still am working on it. I'm not a perfectionist, but I like things to be really good, and I always think I can improve on stuff. So, I mean, I can't sit here and say I still, have nothing to learn. I have so much to learn and not enough time to learn it all.
Right.
But I will say, just from the aspect of being out there to, being able to go out there and compete. I mean, we pitch here when 20 hours starts 4 days a week, but that's not including what you do outside of that. 4 days a week in the college world, whether it's just doing spins or long toss or an actual bullpen, it's just not enough.
Yeah.
Like, I know when I was at home with my parents when I was younger, it would drive me crazy. But my dad would pull me out of my room and he would grab our little spinner and he would make me go and spin to him on the couch. And I'm like, Dad, this is doing nothing for me. Like, I don't understand. But looking back, I just appreciate him pulling me out of my room, telling me to go do this because the small stuff really matters. So, like, it doesn't mean you to go out there and throw 100% in a bullpen. I mean,
Sure.
it could literally be you doing spins to yourself on the couch or you going out and just doing Ks or light stuff. I mean, that's what I've learned in college is that not everything needs to be 100% full out when you're going to pitch. It can be like small mechanical things that will add up as you go on.
So, and basically, what you just said there is that attention to detail is incredibly important to the big picture.
Yeah.
And so, kind of, piggybacking off of that a little bit, I guess, is what would you suggest a solid warm up routine would look like for a high level high school
Mhm.
softball pitcher like you were, and now a college pitcher? Like, what is that? What would you say should entail at least?
So there's different types of pitchers, obviously. Like we have some girls on staff who they need a good 20 minutes to get completely warm to go into a game. And then you have people like me who once I feel like I am, commanding my pitches and I have, good control and that I'm spinning them good, I feel good. That's how I know I'm good. I don't really put a limit on my warm up. It's more of just like, how do I feel in the moment? Like, if I'm sitting there warming up and nothing's going right, I'm going to take like a little 30-second break, regroup, come back, and I'm going to go till I feel good. And obviously, there's going to be days where it's not going great and you got to go out there and fake it. And sometimes it comes together, sometimes it doesn't. But I've just learned in my warm up, it can be 10 minutes, it can be 20 minutes. But as long as I feel good, I'm hitting spots, not missing, my speed looks good, off speeds look good, then that's how I know I'm ready to roll.
Are there any little nuances that you've added to your pitching routine over the years, aside from just full on 100% throwing a bullpen? Anything that you could pull from that's worked for you?
Yeah, so for me, and everyone gives me grief for it, but I have a weighted ball that I have had since my freshman year of high school. Now, I didn't always use it in every warm up, but you can tell I've had it for, 8 years now. It is beat up. And I use that now since I've been in college to, right now, my freshman year to now in college. I use it for every warm up. I just feel like for me, I like to consider myself a harder thrower, and I feel like that has contributed a lot to why I'm throwing harder.
Hmm.
So I have done that for now 4 years, but I used that thing all the time in high school when I felt like I was kind of off with my speed and I wanted, see like because I think it's was 12 ounces at the time. I mean, probably now with it being like waterlogged, it's up to 14 or 15. But that's always helped me kind of get my rhythm back for my speed because I mean it's a heavy ball, then you grab a regular softball and feel like you can chunk it a mile.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was going to ask you about that anyway, about just being able to increase the velocity over the years. So you feel like that weighted ball over the last 8 years has been very instrumental for that, right?
Yes, I mean, it has helped me a lot. I will say I also do a lot of long toss, and you will hear different things about long toss. Some people love it, some people hate it. I've had good results with it, whether it's the long toss or the weighted ball. I mean, I haven't really had any, controlled variables in that case. I
Sure.
keep just throwing different things out there. But with all of that, I mean, it has really helped me gain speed, even in just my years of college. I'm kind of rambling, but my freshman year, I was throwing probably mid 60s. I would max out around like mid 60s. And then my sophomore year, I actually had a speed decrease, which
Okay.
was like a super like hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And so I remember my exit meeting with my coaches at LSU in the spring. They just told me, come back throwing 70. And I'm like, I can do that. So all summer I worked on speed drills. I was, pushing myself in the weight room and came back and I hit my PR last year of 70, which was like incredible for me. Just,
Wow.
it just felt like super rewarding. Like they asked me to do something and I came back and I did it.
That's big.
So yeah, so it was just super cool to see. And now, in the fall, I'm kind of going off back and forth, but
You're
in
good.
the fall, I never throw as hard as I do in the spring, and that's normal for a lot of pitchers. Like the fall is very strenuous, and you're practicing more and harder than you would in the spring. You're like spending more time out there perfecting your craft because in the spring it's just time to go.
Yeah.
So I have found myself throwing harder right now in the fall than I ever have before, which is also just really cool to see that everything that I've been doing with Coach T, and then obviously my time in the off season is just really paying off.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, by the way. Kudos to you on that
Yeah.
front. I mean, because I think that if you have a speed decrease, right, which means in order for you to have gotten back to 70, what you had to add 5 to 7 miles per hour.
Yeah, no,
Um,
it was tough.
yeah, I mean that's insane. And so with that being said, I guess let me go back. I don't want to ramble, but with your long toss, because like you mentioned, some people love it, some people hate it.
Mhm.
As a former baseball guy myself, like long tossing is a standard.
Yeah.
So what what's your distance or what's your progressional that you've gone through with your long tossing specifically? Like, do you know the amount of feet that you get back to do that?
Yeah, I can estimate. I do it at my high school, my old high school field when I go home with my dad. When I do it here, it's kind of harder to tell because I throw from home plate out, so I don't know the specifics.
Okay.
But when I was at home and I was doing my long toss, I was probably getting to about, I want to say like 180, 185 feet.
Okay.
And that's only with my curve and rise. I haven't got my fastball there yet. And haven't got my drop ball there yet. So, but I mean, for me, distance is good. It just proves that you're, throwing harder and, increasing your speed. But for me too, long toss is like a feel good thing. Like I
Mhm.
feel like I'm like letting my arm air out. I can see the spin on all my pitches really well. So if I'm having a bad spin day, I normally just call it quits on full pitching and I go straight to long toss and look
Okay.
at my spin. Because I mean, one, you have time to see it, and two, you can just see it move in the air. So if it's not moving right, obviously it's going to stay straight. So that was super helpful for me because you always hear of people just doing fastballs for long toss.
Right.
And I get it if you're doing it for the speed aspect because that's good too, but you just don't want to throw hard on your fastball. You want to have, a hard curveball, a hard rise ball, all the things.
Well, you're the
So
first person that I've heard mention the curveball as part of their
yeah,
long toss progression.
and you might think I'm crazy, but to a certain distance, I will throw my changeup for a long toss. I don't know what it is. I can't remember who told my dad exactly, but we had a pitching coach tell my dad that if I'm ever struggling with my changeup, back me up a couple of feet, let me throw it, and then scoot up. And I don't know if it's just coincidence, but it worked. So I will scoot back and throw my changeup until I can't make it anymore. And I just feel like it's helped me, one, keep my motion deceptive on my
Right.
change, but two, you can really see how your changeup's breaking so you know how to better control it from 43 feet.
What's been a safe reps limit for long tossing for you, that or like something that you found comfortable?
Yeah, so I long toss wears me out. Like I when I go to the field, I'm either doing a bullpen or I'm doing long toss because once I do long toss, I can't do a full bullpen. Like I am done for. So I will start out at 43 doing one of each, take about 3 to 4 steps back, one of each, 3 to 4 steps back, one of each, till I get to where I can't make it anymore with any of my pitches.
Okay,
So if my fastball misses, I just take fastball out and I'll do curve rise. If curve misses, I take curve out and I just do rise until rise can't make it.
got it.
And then from
Okay,
that point, take 3 steps in, one of each. 3 steps in, one of each. So by the time you're in where you were making it with like where you were making it that was easy for you is starting to become a struggle. So you're seeing like one just like with stamina,
hmm,
but two, you can really see too when you're tired where do your pitches tend to fall short,
got
which I
it.
think is pretty cool.
That's yeah, that's huge. That's huge. So pivoting a little bit to the accuracy and control side of things, what's worked for you, or what would be some of your suggestions of how to kind of dial that in? Because I know for me, I've always kind of preached, at least on the baseball side, is don't if you're trying to work on the accuracy, don't slow your arm speed down just to get it in there. And
Yeah.
I would imagine that that would be the same on the softball side. Is that correct?
Yes, I give lessons back home and my with my younger girls. They'll come in throwing hard and then I see them the next week and I ask, how was your game? And the first thing their parents say was they weren't throwing hard. And I'm like,
Uh,
why are you not throwing hard? And they're like, I'm just want to throw strikes. I'm like, but you understand if you practice throwing hard in a bullpen and you go out in the game and you're not throwing hard, it's not what you were doing in the bullpen.
right,
So that's why I also preach, just as Coach T preaches here, like go 100% in your bullpen. So then when you go out in the game, it is just the same as your bullpen.
right,
Like if you're trying to perfect, and I get you want to perfect things in the bullpen, but if you're trying to be so perfect that you're not giving 100%, it doesn't matter because when you get in the game, your adrenaline's up, you're already going 100%. So you want to have the same thing you do in the bullpen out in the game. But I've also said too, like if you can throw it hard through the zone, that's better than throwing it slow through the zone.
mm,
Not saying speed's everything, but if you're going to go and baby it, trying to like get a perfect strike, it's just not going to work.
right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, uh, before because we're going to pivot a little bit to the mental aspect of the game here in just a second. But before we do that, I want to kind of ask you one of these little caveat questions because I am curious. I had a really great relationship with mine over the years, but for you, how important has your relationship been with your catching staff? Does that play at all into just the way that you move? I mean, level of comfort, those kind of things, or are you the kind of pitcher that
Oh,
can throw to
100 no,
anybody?
100%. I all my years of travel ball, and maybe it's just like it happens like this, but my best friends have always been my catchers. Whether it's because like I'm always talking to them, we're always working together, but that was one thing I found out in college too. It's like your catchers need to know what to say to you because everybody's going to spiral when they're out there at least once in their life.
Hmm.
It's not always going to be perfect. And if you don't have that relationship with your catcher for them to call timeout, come out there, either light a fire under your butt or calm you down, I mean, you have to have that kind of relationship. And I've found it so easy with all my catchers in college. I mean, it's just, I've been surrounded by great people. I've been super blessed,
Yeah,
but my catchers here too. I mean, for the short time I've known them, they have grown to be some of my best friends.
that's incredible. And the reason because I wanted to ask and kind of get your feedback on that front because I know some people are like, the catcher doesn't matter. They're just a glove back there.
So
And for me,
important.
as a former pitcher and now a coach, I'm like, no, it's so much more than that. I mean,
Oh
there's a
my
level
gosh,
of
yes.
comfort. And because if I'm gonna throw my breaking ball, if I'm gonna throw my action in there, I gotta know that they can catch it, and I gotta know that they can receive and feel comfortable. And like you said, they sometimes can come out to the circle and have better words than coach can.
Mhm.
Or they can say things a little different maybe than coach would to
Yeah.
maybe resonate in a different light. So Speaking to the mental aspect of things, obviously it's a huge part of our game. It's a huge part of pitching, though, specifically. How have you managed that aspect of your game throughout your years as not only a college athlete, but maybe even in high school, and how you've grown from that point?
Yeah, so I will say in high school, I always went out there with big body language. It was never, I mean, obviously, I would have nerves, which aren't great. I would feel the need to prove to everybody that I am somebody, which I don't think is a great mindset to have. I don't think you need to prove yourself to anybody. But I struggled with nerves a lot, and I just kind of let that resonate. I never really tried to work on them, which ended up coming to bite me in the butt when I got to college. My freshman year, I have never felt that type of anxiety, and
Mm.
I was always so nervous. But once again, I was a freshman. I didn't think much about it. It was my first year in college. But from what I felt in high school, it like quadrupled
Wow.
and kind of built up, built up, built up. And I'm super open about this because I think everybody needs to know. But last year was probably one of my hardest years yet, just in college. I went out there kind of with a chip on my shoulder. I had something I wanted to prove to everybody. And me just having that, I need to prove this to the fans and to all these people who doubt me really, really came back to bite me. So,
Mm.
about halfway through the year in the beginning of the spring, I started seeing a sports psychologist, and holy cow, I regret not going my freshman year.
Wow.
Like, it just changed my perspective on everything to do with softball. Do I still get nerves? Of course. I think it's good to get nerves, but it's not good to go out there and feel like you're having an out of body experience and you
Right.
can't control your breathing and you are, having the shakes, and that's just not good. And my sports psychologist just taught me to be present in the moment. Like, I remember my freshman and sophomore year, I would go through games and I'm like, someone would tell me something that happened, I didn't remember it ever happening because I was like that, like lost in my
Yeah.
own nerves. And also, too, one thing I found out is just with the mental health and everything, you almost when you are so consumed in yourself, it makes you be like non-consumed with other people on your team. And that was a really, really hard thing for me because I would be so out of touch with people on my team who also have struggles, also have nerves. But I'm so focused on what I have going on in my nerves and what's important to me that I just like lost a lot of touch with all my other teammates.
Hmm.
And so I had to have a teammate come to me and be like, you gotta just chill out. Like, you gotta realize it's just a game. You gotta chill out, be a great teammate. You're known for being, great with all your teammates, but now you're losing touch with all of that. So just having a teammate come to me and be like, we know you're going through it, we know you're working on it, but you still got to be who you are outside of a game
Right.
because you have to be the same person you are at practice as you are in a game. So if I'm going out in a game telling everybody I'm nervous and that I have anxiety, people are going to be worried for me instead of worried about the task at hand, which is to win the game.
Right.
So
Right.
I found a lot of times too, a lot of people say this, but I had to fake it till I made it. And I would finally find relief in games where I could sit back and be like, I remember every single thing that happened in that game. Like, I
Mm.
was so present. I felt everything. I experienced everything. And it's just super cool to look back at because I want to be able to tell my kids one day and all my friends that I meet one day, like what I experienced. But if I can't remember, what happened in the third inning, then I'm really going to regret that because it's 4 years of your life. It's actually
Right.
so, so short.
It's huge. And thank you for sharing that, because I think that, when you look at the mental part of the game, people go to practice all the time. Like, I'm a travel ball coach, and we go practice, we work for 2.5 hours on the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always a lot of mental focused type things. And you mentioned going to the sports psychologist. I mean, even if I'm a believer at this point, even if you don't feel like you need it, I think it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, it can really help shape your perspective on the game, and also just understanding your surroundings. Like, again, you said you were you were basically not yourself, is what you
Yeah.
just said there, because you're known for being able to connect with your teammates, vibe, and gel. And, but sometimes you can be so tunnel visioned or laser focused to where you lose touch of everything,
Mhm. Yeah.
which is tough.
Yeah, you made a point there about how even if you don't think you need to go, you should. I would always, every time I had an appointment to go, I would be on my couch and I'm like, I'm just going to call and cancel. Like, I really don't want to go. Like, this is just so lame talking about my feelings with her. Like, I'm stronger than this. I don't need help. But every time I went, I was like, thank God I went.
Mm,
Like, I thank God I went. And I would always call my sister and be like, I didn't cancel. And I am so, so thankful I didn't cancel because now I just feel so full and I can go, like, fill all my other teammates' cups up. So it was just like really, really good. So I highly recommend it. And maybe not even with like a sports psychologist, but it's just good to talk about how you feel.
right.
And that sounds so lame and whatever, but like it literally just changed my life being able to open up to my parents and be like, I have terrible anxiety. Like, I am so scared what y'all are going to think about me after a game. Like, if
Mm.
I do bad, are y'all going to be mad at me? Because y'all put all this time and money into me before I got to college. Like, what do y'all want from me right now? Like, if I do bad, how are you going to feel? And it was so reassuring to have my parents be like, dude, we don't care how you do. Like, we are here to see you. We're
Yep.
not here to see you pitch a perfect game. We're just here to see you. So I feel like once I had that talk with my parents, I then just opened another door to where I just felt like I could go out there and pitch free, not having any expectations on me about what my parents are going to think, what my coaches are going to think. It was just a really freeing thing that I did. And I'm so, so thankful.
That's huge, and you just made a point there about your parents and just kind of how freeing that can be, knowing where their mindset is, and I try to remind my players every tournament, like, I am a fan of you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I coach the team as a whole, but I'm a fan of you, and so because I'm a fan of you, the results are gonna be what they're gonna be. I'm hoping that you're gonna trust your training and that you're going to, allow what we practice to,
Yeah.
unfold in a game. But if it doesn't, it doesn't, because that's part of competing, right? But it's the expectation that you're gonna give your all and you're gonna compete at the
Mm.
highest level that you possibly can. But sometimes your 100% today is not equal to what it is next
Yeah.
weekend, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. So to kind of take that mental aspect, I guess, to a more recent scenario for you, you recently went through a cancer diagnosis, and I want to kind of be quiet and let you share your story because I feel like other people need to hear this. And so at the end of the day, our listeners, like I said before, they know that I'm a man of faith, and you're a woman of faith and a believer as well. And I think that also has a role in this. But talk us through what took place, the timeline there, and just how you feeling now, and where God's got you on this side of things.
Yeah, this is crazy. This has just been the craziest year of my life, to say the least. Yeah, so put my name in the portal. Super busy this past summer. I also coach a travel ball team. And so with my dad's the head coach, and I coach with my best friend too. So I'm traveling a lot. I'm also trying to find time to go on visits and talk to coaches while I'm in the middle of, the mid of travel ball season. It was just a lot. So long story short, I am trying to get all my appointments in before I come to college because, I got to go see my OB, go get my checkup, all the things.
Hmm.
And so I go see my OB, and never in my life have I had someone, besides when I had strep, touch the top of my throat, but I've never had someone do a thyroid check on me.
Hmm.
And so I'm like feeling her touch my throat, and I'm like, I'm not sick. Like, why are you messing with my throat? And she asked me a question. I can't remember the specifics, but either she was like, have y'all been monitoring this lump, or how long have you had this? And I'm like, what? Like, I don't have a lump. And I was literally so just not even phased by it. I called my mom after, and I'm like, she was touching my lymph nodes. Like, she told me I have a lump on my lymph node. Like, I wasn't even thinking
Yeah.
thyroid. No, she told me that. I just wasn't even like
Didn't
concerned.
didn't register. Yeah.
Yeah. So my mom's like, you've been traveling. You are probably getting a little, sickness coming on with your throat. You're good. So then I get a call later that day. I'm sitting out in the pool and I get a call for a thyroid ultrasound. And I'm like, oh crap.
Mm.
So I first thing I did after I got off the phone was I type in my phone, why do I have a lump on my thyroid? And I just told this to somebody and it was like the internet always tells you either you're dying or you have
Yes.
cancer.
I hate Google.
And I'm sitting there like, well, I'm not dying. I don't have cancer. I'm good. So my boyfriend's mom actually has a couple nodules on her thyroid, but they are all benign. And so when I brought this up to her, she's like, "Oh my gosh, you're fine. Everyone has these benign lumps." I mean, my mom would ask all these people who she works with, and they're like, "Yeah, I have like 3 lumps that are all benign on my neck."
Wow.
And so we're like, "Okay, we're chilling, we're good." I go get labs drawn. My labs come back normal, which is actually very common. Didn't know that. But when I get my ultrasound back, she's like, "Hey, like, can you discuss your results?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, it's not my specialty. So I'm just going to tell you what it says on here." And I actually know her personally.
Okay.
And so she called me after hours and she's like, "I'm just going to tell you what I would tell anybody else." They rank these, I don't call it a tumor. I hate that word. These lumps on a
Yeah.
scale from 1 to 5. And she was like, yours is sitting at a 4. It's 2.1 centimeters in size. The characteristics of it for right now don't weigh cancerous, but I can't give you my word. And I'm like, oh gosh. So I'm just freaking out because on a scale from 1 to 4, I mean, 1 to 5, 4 is up there.
Yeah.
And now that I know about it, I can definitely see it. And so I'm like freaking out and I didn't know, but my mom ended up looking up on the internet and it said anything above 2 centimeters is normally cancerous. And I'm sitting at 2.1. And so I'm
Mhm.
like, still, you don't know.
It's edgy. Yep.
Yeah. So my cousin married a trauma surgeon at LSU Oshner, which is like the major hospital where I'm from. And they told me I was gonna have to wait 3 to 4 months to get an appointment. I'm like, no. I called my cousin. She talked to her husband, and he got me in to get a biopsy. And keep in mind, I'm getting this biopsy. The reason why I need to get it done so fast
Hmm.
is I got the biopsy on a Tuesday. Came down to Starkville on a Thursday.
Oh, wow.
So I had to get this done like ASAP.
Yeah, we've got to work.
And
Okay.
so I go get my biopsy. I'm talking to the guy and I'm like, look, what do you think? Like, give me your honest opinion. And he just looked at me and said, you're going to be fine. And I'm like, okay, you're not really giving me specifics, but I'm going to
Sure.
be fine. So I come back. They told me the results would come in about 3 weeks. And I come back. I'm actually here for a week and haven't even started team practice yet. Here for a week, and I get a call saying, "Hey, it's Dr. Larimore. Can we discuss your results?" And I'm like, "It's been a week. Like, this is really, really soon." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, it is cancer." And that was like the last thing I heard. And so he was trying his best to be like, calm down. Like, are you driving? Where, like, are you at your, I'm like, no, I'm in my apartment, but I need to call my mom. So I got on the phone with my parents and I went home that day,
Yeah.
had my consultation for surgery. On I went home on a Friday. Consultation for surgery was on a Tuesday, and I want to say I had surgery that next Wednesday, September 4th. Don't remember what day it was exactly, but it all was really fast.
Yeah.
But they got it. My scar looks absolutely incredible. But I got pathology back probably about 3.5 weeks after surgery, and there is no cancer in my body. I didn't have to go through any more treatment of any sort. So normally the thing with thyroids is that if you remove the thyroid, which I have my whole thyroid removed,
Okay.
um, if that's the only place the cancer is at, once you remove it, 99% of the time, people have no other reoccurrence of this. So, hoping I'm in the 99%, I have faith that I will be. But that was one thing too. I always mention like people are always so concerned, like if I want to talk about it, and I'm like,
Sure.
guys, like this has no effect on me. Like I felt so weird because the only time I cried was when I found out I had cancer and then right before surgery because I've never had surgery before. So I was a little uneasy.
Sure.
But everyone would ask me like, "Are you not scared?" I'm like, "Should I be? Like should I be scared like knowing that my future is like held in the hands of our amazing God? Like really should I be so scared?"
Yeah.
Like it was just like and I guess if people don't have faith, it's a very scary thing. But I told someone one time too, I'm like, if I'm healed, great. If I'm not healed, great, because I know he has a plan
Yep.
and I will be healed and he will work out all things for good. And so I really don't have any stress in that aspect. Like, it wasn't a facade I was putting on. Like, I truly just felt very at peace.
Good
Like,
one.
it was just a really crazy experience, and I wish that someone could just feel how I felt in that moment, like, after I sat down and I went through all the "why me? Why now?" all that, but once I kinda just took a step back, and even now, just seeing everything unfold, I'm just seeing a lot of things work out for good, and there's a reason for everything, and so it's just cool to see, like, how he opens doors, shuts doors, and all the things. It's been really, really cool.
So, first of all, thank you. And I know that's probably not a big thank you in your mind because you're like, well, I'm cool to share it regardless. But I thank you for those who may not be able to say thank you to you directly because, like I said, I think that you sharing your story, I think is big for the people because one, I feel like if I could put hope in a box and wrap it up and give it to people, like this is the way I would do it. I
Yeah.
would share experiences of God's grace and mercy and just his awesomeness with people and go, listen, if you don't know this guy, you need to meet him. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
that's kind of how I am with stuff. And I think for us as athletes, at times, we look at wins and losses and pressure and moments as big things, right? When in the grand scheme of life, it's not that big a deal. And so for you, because I wanted to ask you, what is that feeling like of pitching under duress or pitching under pressure or pitching in big games? Um, how you handle that, but having this God experience, I mean, how will you handle that moving forward? How do you feel like mentally you're going to go into that moving forward?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell two separate things, but right now at Mississippi State we have a thing called leadership meeting or leadership group. We have a leadership meeting on Fridays, and basically one of my first meeting back, I go in there and Ricketts is just talking about how we can, talk to the freshmen about, how it seems like the end of the world, but it's not.
Hmm.
And I remember just sitting there thinking, like, well, because I feel like you gotta, once you have a real life experience that kind of kicks you on your butt for a second, and you're like, dang, so like I would rather give up like 8 home runs than have to go through this.
Yep.
It's just like you realize like how small softball is in the grand scheme of life and just in everything. Like, I just remember a time, it was actually last year. I had a terrible, terrible game, and I was going home for Easter. And the whole ride home, I am just like beating myself up. I'm wondering what everybody's saying about me. And I get home, and it's like I go to church, and no one cares about how I played. And I'm just like, y'all aren't like disappointed that like I didn't pitch great and like, whatever. Like, no one really cares
Yeah.
outside of your small group in softball how it's going. And I remember my counselor told me when I was at LSU, she was like, "Well, do you sit here and think about every time so and so is struck out?" Like, is that all you sit here and think about? And I'm like, no, I'm thinking about myself. She's like, exactly. No one's thinking about what you did last game.
Yeah.
They're all too focused on themselves at this moment to be putting any time and effort into how good or bad you did. So that's one thing that's always kind of helped me in the game is I'm like, no one's sitting here in their mind thinking, God, Raelin is doing terrible. Like, I don't feel confident with her out here. Like, no one is sitting there thinking that.
Sure.
And I feel like one thing for me too that I think was really cool was my junior year last year. I remember before games, and I kind of touched on this before, but I would just pray and ask God to allow me to be present because you're present one in every bullpen you throw.
Mm,
Every time you're out there practicing in softball, I mean, you are present in what's going on. When you get in a game and you have nerves, you tend to just kind of blend all these moments together.
right.
When I started asking him to let me be present and to allow myself, to go through every single moment of the game, I found myself being able to kind of like make the moment be less. Because when you're not understanding where you're at the same field that you practice on every day.
Yeah.
It's not like you're at this big stage. I mean, you're here every day. No one is sitting there in the stands who are fans of your school just praying for you to lose. Everyone's in your corner.
Yep.
And so when I would kind of like step back and just see the big picture, I'm like, why am I putting so much pressure on this? Now, like I said, don't get me wrong, I still get nerves. Like before a game, I have nerves and it's so normal, but I always tell my friends if I don't have nerves, that's when you should freak out.
Yeah.
Because I have to have a little something in my system to be like, you better get in shape right now.
A little
Like it's game
motivation is
time.
good.
Yeah, it's game time. Like you
Yeah.
better go. But it was just super cool now to like look back, even like when we throw live on the field, like I try to be so present in the moment and just feel everything and like understand what I'm doing. And the more I do that, the more joy I find just in this sport. Like my first 2 years of college softball, zero joy.
Mm,
Not because of the people, not because of the place,
sure.
solely because I was like, I might as well have had my ERA tattooed on my forehead. Like that was all I cared about, my stats. And I'm like, bro, no one's looking at my stats but me.
Yeah.
Maybe my dad. But like no one's sitting here looking at my stats thinking, oh, she has a 2 point whatever ERA, like she's terrible. Like
Yeah.
no one's doing that. And so once I realized that like one, I don't go look at other pitchers' stats. So I can almost assure myself that they're not coming and looking at my stats and judging me like I judge myself.
Right.
So that was also super cool to see. And like I mentioned earlier, no one cares about your wins or losses as much as you do. So once I learned to make my wins and losses look the same with me personally, I also found growth in myself because if I had a win, then I knew, or I had a good game, I knew that next week was going to be awesome
Yeah.
because I was going to feel great. I would think people liked me more. But if I had a loss or a terrible game, like I would go to practice with like this gray cloud hanging over my head, thinking everybody hates me and no one's going to want to talk to me because I did bad. And they're all talking about how bad I did, which no one ever did that. But it's never as bad as you think, and it's never as good as you think.
Right.
So,
Exactly right. Well, Ray, as we wrap up here, just I want to first of all thank you for being on the show, because I think that just the amount of value that your story, obviously all the pitching, strategies and expertise that you offer. I mean, I think that's going to add a lot of value to everybody that's watching this show right now. But also, though, I think that it takes special people in this world to say, "Hey, listen, I am going to be an example." Right. I am going to lead by example. I'm going to share my experience and hopefully offer value to other people that I don't even know that I may never meet. And I think that's a big deal. And so, as we wrap up, if you could just say, "Hey, listen, here's the best piece of advice that I could offer you as a young pitcher." If you're thinking about that young pitcher, maybe that you give lessons to, or that you coach through travel ball this summer, or the girls like them around the country, or around the world, even. Um, what's one piece of advice you'd give them as we close out?
Might sound cliche, but I would just say don't take anything for granted. The
Mm,
good games, the bad games, there's a lesson in every single one of them. And if you can dig a little deeper through the bad games and try to find that lesson learned, even in the good games, it will all pay off. So it's all going to help you out some way, one and another. So just don't take anything for granted.
love that. Love that. And my thought you should know moment I always wrap up with this is guys, don't forget to tell the person in the mirror that you love him sometimes, because if you can't love yourself, it's tough to ask others to do that.
Yeah.
And it's worth giving some of those self talk, self motivation, self positive vibes. That's always a good thing. So we're gonna wrap this show up, ladies and gentlemen, like we always do. So please let every single thing you do be done in love, because at the end of the day, that is truly what makes this world go around. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.